Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Brokers Open Podcast. I'm Dr. Ben Spears, the Doctor of Flow. I am here with the big guy, Matt Vi. What's up, Matt?
Man, just living the great dream, excited about who we're about to get to talk to.
Yep.
We've kicked off the year great. Everything's going really good. I know it's going to be even better as soon as we get into this guest that we've got.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and bring him on, guys. He's the grand poobah of the universe. That's an inside joke that you guys just had to figure out coming to BOB Live.
Your $20 is on the way.
That's right.
So we have Ryan Cook. He's a broker owner of HomeSmart First Class Realty in the Boston area. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful today, even though we have a big snowstorm coming.
Yeah. Every time we talk to Ryan, it's like July. He's a big snowstorm coming.
Right between Boston and Providence, right? Isn't that where you're located?
Literally smack dab right between the two. There's like a tenth of a mile difference one way or the other.
Oh yeah,
very cool.
So it's always snowing.
Well, awesome. I always start every podcast because we want to obviously dive into the nuts and bolts and talk about the things agents want to hear. But I think it always helps to understand the why, of course, and a little bit of a background, build like a foundation there. Ryan, why don't you tell us a little bit how you got into real estate? Were you just 6 months old and you were like playing with whatever's like hanging above your crib and you're like, I think I want to be in real estate when I grow up? Or how do you think that happened?
Oh, no, it wasn't that at all. I graduated from the Coast Guard Academy and I was an officer. I was a deck watch officer in the Coast Guard Cutters in Kodiak, Alaska. And when I got out, I was doing engineering work, but I was traveling a ton and it was really taxing on my family. As my wife said, I didn't sign up for this. So I needed to figure out something different. I thought getting a license would be easy. And I thought, I'll just get a license. I'll have access to the MLS. And I was investing at the time. And then after I got my license, that's when I found out you can't just get access to the MLS. You have to be with a broker. And the broker was a realtor office. And so all of a sudden I had all this money coming out of my pocket and nothing coming in. Mm-hmm. But I managed to stick around for 15 years. And I think a lot of that just had to do with my military background, having a plan of the day, being very regimented in my time, which is not something most agents like to do. And that's just what sort of kept me around.
Yes. So we love that. And that's part of the reason why we actually wanted you to come on and share this with some of the agents, because you are very good at making sure that you stay on top of a plan. So I'm going to get you to put your broker's hat on for just a second here. Okay. And so I'm going to ask you for something in just a second, which is how do agents make sure that they stay on track on a day-to-day basis? But before we dig into that, so you were a broker at a real estate office for a while. Excuse me, you're an agent at a real estate office for a while, and then you opened your own brokerage, right? And so after you did that, you started working with agents, helping them get productive as possible. So what is it that an agent needs to do in order to make sure that they stay on track and get productive as quickly as possible, in your opinion? What do they need to focus on?
I think there's a couple of things they need to focus on. One of the big things I learned really early on, I think my first day in real estate, my broker said, hey, we have a Buffini class starting up today. Why don't you head down and do that? Of course, he didn't tell me it was $1,000, but there was a class starting up, and they got you started with getting your database together. So one of the very first things you knew was a database of everyone who already knows you, likes you, trusts you. Super important. And then deciding how you're going to stay in touch with them. But one of the things I've learned over time, and it wasn't just from Buffini, it's from a lot of folks, is that to be successful in any business, regardless whether it's real estate or anything, leads is the lifeblood. You need people to serve. You can't just be good at it. You have to have people who are ready to work with you. And you need 3 legs to make a stool stable. And it's something I go over with my agents all the time. You got your database, and your database should be in 2 parts. You should have your clients, your A's, B's, and C's in Buffini speak. All right. And then you should also have a business to business network where you also A, B, and C that, because you're going to communicate with your business folks different than the clients that you've personally served. And there's a different way you should go about doing that, different cadence of being in touch with them, different kind of information you're sharing, etc. The next is going to be maybe some type of lead source. You have agents who like Zillow or other paid lead sources, or Ojo and OpCity. Those are ones where you're going to have a percentage of like a referral fee as opposed to paying up front for it. And then a third would be some sort of niche. and deciding what it is you want to do. And I think where most agents struggle is, one, they don't like to lead generate. They don't know who they want to serve. They don't get clear on who they're serving. And then they just flounder and they hope that the phone will ring. And it just doesn't work that way. In the end, you got to decide what you want to stand for and who you want to serve. And I initially started off myself personally serving investors, and that worked well because I got started in 2009, which is really questionable decision to leave the engineering profession and go into real estate in 2009. But I started off serving investors, but I started working with a lot of multifamily owners. And since I do a lot of estate work, so I work with a lot of attorneys, I work with data source providers to get probate information from them so I can be in touch with those families. And you should always be not thinking of them as, too many agents think of it as closing deals, and it has nothing to do with closing deals, about serving people and getting to the point where at the end they're like, oh my God, you are so vital. I wouldn't have gotten through this without you. Thank you so much. And you need to come into the market with the mindset that you are here to serve people. And for me personally, like my very first, like, why did I pick real estate? My very first home purchase was in 1999, and actually in San Jose, California. And my parents hadn't bought a house since the 70s. My wife's parents had bought their retirement home in the mid 80s in Florida down in Northport. And none of my siblings had purchased anything, none of my wife's siblings, none of my friends. We didn't have anybody we could talk to, and there was no real internet to search stuff, right? And now I'm making myself seem old. But there was no internet for that stuff. And to make a long story short, it was a terrible experience. And we ended up, when we went to sell a couple years later, that's when we found out we had a negative amortization loan and that we owed more than we borrowed. And it was like, what's a negative amortization loan? Because there were no disclosures at the time. So I didn't want anybody else to go through that experience. And that's why I picked real estate when I was looking for a career change. And I always think of the client being in that situation that I don't ever want. It doesn't make a difference whether it's a buyer, whether it's a seller, whether it's an estate, that doesn't make a difference. Investor, I don't ever want them to ever feel the way my wife and I felt.
Listen, I am super sad that happened to you, but in a way, a little bit, I'm glad, because there's a chance that you wouldn't have got into real estate if it would have went really smoothly. And as a broker, I know you do a tremendous amount to help your agents out and to make sure that they grow their business. And so I love the fact that you're in real estate. I just hate it. That's what the catalyst was that got you into it.
Yeah, it wasn't like a lot of folks like, oh, I always dreamed about it. No, there was no dream about it, but I was just looking for a change. And I literally said, where were terrible experiences for me, and where do I think I can make a difference? And that's what I try and bring for my agents too. It's for any agent, not just my agents. I don't care if you're in Massachusetts or if you're in Iowa. Client comes first. How can you solve their problem? How can you be a source of information? How can you try and stress this to my agents? Listen, your clients have stress. They have anxiety about it because they don't do this every day, and you do. And the more you can share with them up front, let them know what the process is going to be like. Let them know what's happening. What is it going to mean? What are the possible things that could happen, and how are you going to solve it? And you do that stuff up front, they are totally prepared from start to finish, and they never have to worry about anything. At the end, they're like, wow, you made that super easy. I'm like, yes, but that comes with processes and thinking about that stuff in advance, and how are you going to deliver those services?
Absolutely. So that actually brings me into, you've said something in the conversation, and you said it just really smoothly and kept moving. And I've heard you talk about this before, and it would be a disservice to our audience if I didn't have you talk about it now. Okay. What you said was cadence of communication. And so what I'd love for you to do is, and I know you said that there's three legs to the stool. Let's really talk about communication with clients and customers. Let's talk about that one. If you would dig into cadence of communication for just a second, and what you meant by that, because I love your definition, and I think that so many agents would benefit tremendously by adopting what you say about it.
Sure. So this starts off with you have to. I always ask my agents when they don't have a database or they just got something in a spreadsheet. I ask them the question: are all your clients the same? Do they have the same value? And they go, yes. I say, no, they don't. They say, what do you mean they don't? I have to treat them all the same. Sure, you have to treat them with respect, etc. But they don't all have the same value. Some refer business to you multiple times. Some never have. Some barely know you. And so the folks who referred you lots of business and you have a great relationship with, you're going to treat them better. And I always tell them, think of it like a pyramid. At the bottom is your in when you think of A's, B's, and C's, A's being your best clients, B's and C's being your lowest clients that know you, like you, trust you, and then of course you get your D's, which are new leads coming into your business that you're trying to get to the point of them knowing you, liking you, and trusting you, right? So but at each level, D, C, B, and A up your pyramid, you have a different cadence. You have a different, you're trying to deliver more value. And I always tell them you should be keeping track on a monthly basis. How many D's, how many C's, B's, A's, and you should be looking every month, all right, how do I promote people up my service pyramid so that I have more people at my highest level of service? And at those levels of service, you're communicating more, you're having more face-to-face communication, you're taking them out to dinner, you're doing different things. Similar on the business to business side, where your real referral partners within the industry are, you're going to have different levels of communication with them. You're going to do events and stuff like that. But your cadence is going to be, you got to mix it up. You got phone calls, you have face to face, you have email, you have physical mail, you have stopping by with small gifts of the Buffini pop by, which is still a fantastic strategy. Everybody should be doing something where you're face to face with your clients, because too many folks now are trying to hide behind email, and they're trying to hide behind social media. And in the end, this is a face to face. As a famous marketer, Dan Kennedy, that says this is a nose to nose, toes to toes, belly to belly business. And you have to be willing to put yourself out there and be in front of people. And then you have the 7 levels of communication. The very top is face to face, right? And you should be striving to have that as part of it. I'll sit down with the agents and help them try and figure out what their marketing plan is based upon what their skill set is. But in the end, you have to adapt your business to what you do best, but you can't eliminate face to face. You can't eliminate the phone call. You just may not do as much of it, but you're going to do more of it for your A's, a little bit less for your B's, a little bit less for your C's. And your A's, I try and tell folks, like, you should be in touch with your A's probably every single week in some way, shape, or form. Your B's, maybe not as much. Your C's, a little bit less. It's just, that's what I mean by cadence. And it all depends on what an agent has the ability to deliver. So my cadence with my clients, with the systems I use, is going to be very different than a newer agent who doesn't have a mature database versus an agent who's been in the business for a while, but has maybe a gigantic database, but they don't stand for anything. So if you don't stand for something specific, if you're not a specialist, or you're not trying to be the top agent in your specific market, maybe your individual municipality, you're going to have a slightly different plan. But that's where having a good relationship with your broker, and a broker who understands being in touch with your clients and building relationships, is going to be very valuable. They're going to help you define that plan for your business to get you where you want to go.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned in that cadence communication, you mentioned the word value several times, right? You have to bring value. You have to show your value. I think moving into not only the market that we're in right now, but the market that we're going to be in just for the next, couple of years. It's 2024. If someone's listening to this in 2030, that bringing that value is going to be so important. And so I have to ask you, for our listeners, right? If I'm a real estate agent and I'm listening, what types of value should you be showing or bringing to the table for your buyers, your sellers, investors, you name it, whatever you want to talk on there?
Yeah, so it's really going to depend on who that client is, right? So if you have a seller is looking for different information than a buyer, who's looking for different information than an investor, who's looking for different information than a multifamily property owner, et cetera. So me personally, because I'm a glutton for punishment, I have different plans depending on the type of client, because that's just who I am. But some agents just aren't ready for that level of execution. And so just having something in place. So when we say bringing value, so let's say one of the things I started doing at the beginning of last year, and have been pretty darn consistent about it, is I put out a weekly newsletter that I call the Ryan List. And I didn't invent it. I copied it from Chris Smith, who sends out a weekly, the Chris List. And if you're not on the Chris List, you should get on it. Comes out every single Tuesday, I think at 11 o'clock in the morning, or 2 o'clock, maybe it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but every single Tuesday it comes out. And he took his name and he broke it into categories. So I'm like, I can do that. I can copy that. I don't need to invent it. So I did the Ryan List, and that goes out every single week. Typically goes out on Thursday afternoon. And I break it down to research is the R, why is your home, A is activities, so what's going on in the local area, and N is I call newsworthy, so it's like a wild card, whatever I want to talk about. But in the beginning, I have an intro section where I talk about what's going on with my family or fun things we're doing, just something more personal. And then I get into those little categories. And my open rate still after a year is over 70% because it's something that's fun. And it's not like the challenge most agents have is they're always asking for business. Hey, if you know anybody who's looking to buy or sell, and if you're always doing that, eventually people they stop opening your mail. They don't want to take your phone call. So you got to be a real person. I think a lot of agents struggle with that. So that's one way of bringing value is helping them understand the market, but make it fun. Don't always make it about business. Inject some of yourself in there because they're dealing with you're a human being and you have a personality, and just your personality is going to attract your ideal clients because we all give off energy and we're going to attract certain types of folks. And so make sure you're putting some of yourself in there. Be real. Don't be a robot. Don't be just hitting AI and post. Like AI is great in the right sense, but you need to be able to inject some of your personality. So taking that value. Other value would be just coming by with a gift that you're thinking of them. That's value. Folks like to know that you're thinking of them and you're bringing something. Like just a couple of weeks ago, we did windshield washer fluid with a little note on there, and so I'll help you see the market clearly. I'm saying like the best dad joke you can think of, put that on a card with a gift and drop it by their house. And it's good for a chuckle and a face-to-face. That's value. And it lets them know that you're still there. You're still in real estate. They can still rely on you and trust you, that you're still there for referrals whether they're referring to you or they need help, where you've built your business-to-business network and they need someone to help with something. So value is going to be dependent on who you're serving. Try and inject some of yourself in there and think of what would be something that if you are that person, what would be something you would want to know or be kept up to date on.
Yeah, very cool. And so, Matt knows that the way I think of everything is kind of very process oriented. So we've talked about, okay, we're putting together our database, right? And we're labeling and tagging these our A's, our B's, and our C's. Then we bring it and we say, okay, we want to communicate with these people in a certain level. So then we start talking about cadence of communication. And then we take it a step further and say, okay, we're communicating with them, but what value are we sending them? Now, because you're the man with all the answers, the grand poobah of the universe, now I got to bring it right smack dab into, okay, we've done all those things. Now these buyers, sellers, they're reaching out and they're saying, yeah, you're my guy or you're my gal as an agent. What is that next step to say, you know what, I am meeting face to face with that person. At this point, I need to knock it out of the park. What advice would you give me if I was saying, hey, I've got this opportunity that is like right here in my hand. I just have to grab onto it and not let it slip through the cracks.
Part of that, like I'm very process driven. Of course, my engineering background, etc. That's just I always thought I read the E-Myth a very long time ago by Michael Gerber. And I definitely took what they were saying. Basically, hey, think about McDonald's is a multi-billion-dollar corporation run by teenagers, realistically. And it's because they had a process for doing things. So I had a process for doing everything. So my buyers, I got a buyer process. And part of that is come into the office, let's meet. I'm going to introduce them to the process, especially if they're first time. If they haven't purchased in a long time, I'm going to do the same thing. It may be at their house as opposed to in the office. But you just got to think of who is the client. And now here's this opportunity in front of me. For me, I have a plan that I launched them on through my CRM. And it includes some mailings with some information. I get some videos that I'll send out their way to let them know what's going to happen. And for me, it's all about allaying fear. If you can allay someone's fear, they're going to feel more comfortable with you and answering the questions that they don't know, right?
Yeah.
So I've spent a lot of time thinking about that. And I always ask my clients, especially at the end, when you're finished working with a buyer and they're under properties under contract or they're closed, or seller, same thing. What is something we could have done better? What is something that maybe we missed on? And I've been doing that for so long that I have a very complete list. And now I've turned those into handouts. I've turned those into email series. I've turned those into videos such that I just launch them onto those plans. And now they're going to get an email or a text message. I mix media, work with people where they are. So I mix media with some of those messages. And my whole goal is to allay fear, keep them informed, let them know what's going to happen so that when they get there, they're not surprised. Because when they're surprised, like I'll tell newer agents, listen, if you play video games and like you got your little hearts at the top of the screen that shows your life, right? Maybe you got 3 or 4, let's just say it's 5. I said every time you do something where they're nervous and they're upset with you, you lose a heart. And the point is you want to keep that life force, that all 5 hearts filled up. And the way you do that is by keeping them informed and not allowing surprises to happen. And if a surprise does happen, don't send a text or an email. It's preferably face-to-face, or a second choice is phone call. And you're going to go over, here's what happened, and here are the solutions, and this is what I'm recommending we do based on this. How would you like to proceed? And I never tell them. I always ask them, how would you like to proceed? How would you like to handle it? Basically, based on the information I've shared with you. So agents really need to think about that stuff. Lay out what is the process in your area. The way we do things in Massachusetts and Rhode Island is going to be different than Florida and Georgia, California. The players are different, but understand what that is, and you should be providing them resources to allay their fears, to make them feel very confident that you know what you're doing, and no matter what comes up, it's going to be handled, and they're not going to have problems.
Yeah. One thing that I love every time we talk, because we talk to Ryan pretty regularly. He's a good friend of ours. One thing that I love about it is every time that we talk, it's like I'm talking to a real estate expert.
Oh, yeah.
The same thing. Right? I sit and I have these conversations with Matt, but every time we talk with Ryan, man, there's just no hesitation. It's like, here's the answer. I got a process for this. I got a system for that. Again, and that just goes to show why you're a successful real estate broker. I know that our audience, whether just like you said, whether they're in your area, of course they want to reach out to you and talk to you, pick your brain. But our friends in Florida and Georgia and California and all these other places, they're going to want to do that as well. And I just want to make sure that I ask you, what would be the best way for an agent to reach out to you just to meet a really cool and smart person or to learn more about what you do at your brokerage?
You forgot handsome.
You forgot handsome. That's right.
Oh, yeah. Handsome. And
that's
he's
thank
handsome.
you. Thank you. All right.
He's handsome.
I mean, so the easiest one, you can reach out to me through social media, obviously Facebook. It's at Ryan Cook Realtor is my Facebook profile. You can get me on Instagram, which is at Ryan T. Cook. LinkedIn, Ryan T. Cook Realtor. And you know what? It's funny because I've been doing it long enough that a lot of these social networks, like you want to have the same name, but some of those profiles existed, and at the time they had different length requirements. And like I created one, and now it was too long for this other one.
Right.
Now I have different ones, and it's just too late. I'm not going back and fixing that stuff, but they can do that. I'm really easy to find. You can even go on realtor.com and do an agent search and look me up that way, because I am a realtor. I'm actually the president of my local board, at least for 2024, and very involved at the state level as well. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Absolutely. I love that. Ryan, we're super grateful for you coming on the show, man. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
No, I appreciate everything you guys do. No, I learn more from you guys, and it's caused me to change some of the ways that I do business, because I'm always looking to improve. And if you don't have folks to look up to who are doing things the right way, the way you want to be, and you should always be looking to improve what you're doing. Don't ever sit still. And so, I mean, that's one of the reasons how I found you guys. It was like I was looking to improve, and I take more information from you guys and adapt it than I've been able to share here for sure.
We love it. And everything that you've said has been spot on. If an agent listening to this takes 1/10 of what you just talked about, it can revolutionize their business, let alone if they dig into it and reach out to you and let you help them go to the next level with what they're trying to accomplish. So we appreciate you coming on here, sharing. You're absolutely awesome. Ben, is there anything else?
Nope, I'm good. Thanks a lot, Ryan.
That's fantastic. Awesome. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Guys, wherever you're listening to this or watching it, make sure you hit that follow and subscribe button. As always, Matt, Brokers Open Podcast, not just about open houses.
It's about open minds. Thanks, everybody.
See you guys.